By the time I was 15 years old, I was considered one of the best players in the country.
The term Manchild was devised in order to describe Schea.
High lob for Schea. Oh!
Schea Cotton is the best high school athlete that I've ever seen.
Quarter's been all Monarch so far. High lob.
Schea Cotton was like LeBron James before there ever was a LeBron James.
Google Schea Cotton, you'll see.
Larger than life, standing tall. Haters wanna see him fall. He's a man-child, man-child. He's a man-child. Oh yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Coffeez. Thanks for joining here, Shane.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
All right, cool. So Schea, you've been through quite the journey. We're going to dive into your journey. But before we do that, I like to ask every guest the same thing. What's your morning routine, brother?
Morning routine. Start my morning on my knees, saying my prayers. I turn on something uplifting, self-improvement wise. Typically, I listen to Bishop T.D. Jakes. This morning, I was listening to Maya Angelou, speaking to my journey. Whatever mood that I wake up in, I try to type that into YouTube and find something inspirational just to wire me for the day. Before I touch any email, any social media platform, I pour into myself.
Love that. Love that. Start the day with God.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Absolutely.
Well, let's dive into it. So what do you think most people right now still misunderstand about gifted kids and what weight they carry with everyone around them who expects greatness out of them?
I think what most people don't understand about the gifted kids is the work that they put in behind the scenes, aside from their natural talent, to rise to the top of the food chain in their profession at a younger age. And the weight that carries. Once you become established and become one of the best players, then everybody's gunning for you. You kind of have a bullseye on your back. And it's that consistency, being able to produce at that level, is what makes you special and separates you from your peers.
You were, I think, the #1 high school phenom at the time. And, everybody was touting about you nationwide. What is the misconception, if you're okay to air it, about the fall of Schea Cotton?
Great question. The misconception is there was no wrongdoing on my behalf. My name was never cleared. Family name was slandered throughout the process, which I think hurt my professional chances to rise to the highest level. And that's part of why we created the Manchild documentary and why I do a lot of work that I'm doing today with the youth, just to kind of get them aware and show them that there's other ways to win in life, not just actually playing the game of basketball, but everything in the business that surrounds it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of a sudden, Schea Cotton just disappeared, It was like hype around Schea Cotton, and then, boom, it was like you disappeared off the planet.
Yeah, well, I went overseas. I played ball international for about 10 years. After I went undrafted in the NBA, played in Europe, South America, played in Asia, played in all the minor leagues, CBA, NBDL, before the G League was created. So I had my time. My professional opportunities didn't go the way I thought it would go, but I got a lot of life experience, learned a lot about myself, and prepared me for ultimately the work I'm doing today.
What do you think the greatest lesson is that you learned from that experience?
It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And nobody sees the middle. Everybody sees the beginning and the end. And the middle is where you learn about yourself and find out who you really are. And that's what I speak to. And that's where I tend to live today. I speak to the journey, I speak to the process, and I speak to the resilience in life.
I love that. Now, you've lived the kind of early success that, like, everybody dreams about that success, right? What's the deeper cost that rarely gets talked about?
Great question. The deeper cost is giving up your childhood, in your adolescent stages, as well as your personal life. I mean, it's definitely impacted. You start to look at everybody, you feel like you're living in a fishbowl. You look at everybody like they want something from you, because most of them do. I was a kid at 15 years old, playing a sport that I loved, dealing with a lot of adults that were looking at the exploitation side of me as a player before NIL, before social media. So it was a big deal at that time.
I mean, man, if the Schea Cotton existed today that existed back then, what do you think would be different?
The NIL, I would have broke the bank.
Making millions of dollars,
for
right?
sure. It'd be a $10 million valuation for sure, and the thing is, I look at social media two ways. I like it.
And you would have had millions of followers.
Yeah,
Millions.
for sure. And a lot of these kids today don't know who I am, so that's part of what we're trying to do here is to reinvent myself and make deposits in the kids of today because they're the future of tomorrow to help them have different pathways to succeed. When you finish college, if the NBA is not calling, what are you going to do next? So just having those resources in place to help people land on their feet.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA could be calm, but they could be calm for like a summer internship. My buddy owns the Suns. He'd be like, "Yo, go work and you scrub the floors."
That's right. That's right. Start at the bottom, work your way up.
But you're not gonna play
That's right.
against all these guys.
That's right. That's right.
You're gonna barely be 5'11", bro. My kids, like if you're lucky, 5'11".
Well, it's the heart of it, though. You see McConnell, playing with the Pacers. You got some small guys that really test the status quo, from a height standpoint. I tell people it's not about...
Spud Webb played.
Yeah.
Muggsy Bogues.
Look at Muggsy,
that
too.
That won't happen anymore. But
Earl Boykins, you got some small guys that did well. I mean, it's not about the size. It's the heart of the individual. So I tell people that all the time.
Yeah, that's right. No, they had heart like nobody's business. When did you know your story wasn't just a personal journey, but like a responsibility for you to serve the next generation?
Great question. I think when the film was completed, when we did our first screening, we saw the response.
What was that response like?
We had rented out one of the theaters at the theater right across from the Paramount Studios, the Raleigh Studios in Hollywood. And by the time we were about to air, we had to open up and rent a whole nother studio because we had about 200 people in the overflow. So opening night for the screening, we probably had close to 500, 600 people at a screening that we only prepared for 300. So I knew that there was a demand, and then after the screening was over, we had people that were, crying in the audience, people that just felt a call to action. Some people were angry, other people were enlightened, and we do Q&As after the film, and people were really moved. It took almost an hour to answer everybody's questions. So I knew there was an impact because it was the youth and the adults that were very inquisitive about the film and things that happened in my career.
So when you say people were angry, like what were they angry that you got burned in the process? Were they angry about the system? Were they angry about the lack of justice? Were they angry? What was the the primary variables there?
Yeah, I think the main thing about it was they saw through the film that I got basically a raw deal, and like I said, they didn't clear my name, so there was a slander that was done, a defamation of character, and so we're dispelling a lot of that today. I've had to work really hard and make sure I kept my image together so I could rep myself and my family in the right light. And I think today, working with the kids I'm working with and the families that know I'm working with their kids, they see the growth in their kids, and you can't monetize that. I think that gives me a different level of respect and appreciation in our fabric today in the sports realm, and even with the kids. My whole thing is building those testimonies. If I can help inspire you to make you better, we're on the right track.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So tell the audience, what's this movie about? Like give the overview, and what do you want the audience to... First off, I don't know if they can go see it without a private screening, if it's going to be in, theaters nationwide, but, the gist of the film, and what's the objective of it?
The film is, the premise is basically based on a story of myself and my family, a guy that was highly touted, #1 player in the country, who was basically a surefire first-round draft pick, and it didn't happen. Everybody thought that I was going to have a long career in the NBA, and my life took a turn, and I don't think a lot of people understand the dynamics behind why it took a turn and how it took a turn. So
they just hear rumors.
Right. The documentary speaks to it, but then the Q&A, I dive into the meat and potatoes of the experience, so you get to learn even further, the details of behind the scenes with the NC2A, things that happened along the way, how I wound up playing 2 years out of high school, in prep school and junior college before I arrived at a Power 5 at University of Alabama. So that's part of the mission. The other side is, to show kids there's other ways to win in life. I started one way, thought it was going to end one way, and I'm in a completely different space today. And it's rewarding to see people being impacted, and they're young, and then you see them getting older, and they come back and say, appreciate you. The time you spent really made a difference in my life.
I've had NBA players come on, and they still got to find themselves after the NBA.
That's right.
Sometimes it's harder for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lose it all.
Right.
So even if you had went to the NBA, you probably wouldn't be better off than you are right now.
I think I'm better now that I didn't. I feel like I was spared in a sense because I didn't like the system, if that makes sense. The business. I love the sport, love to compete at the highest level, play against the best talent, but the business of it turned me off. I couldn't stand what money did to people and the greed behind it, the stuff that you saw behind the scenes. That's the part that I didn't like. I'm an introvert, a lot like Kobe was, rest in peace, and I put a lot into the game and a lot into myself, so I could be a bigger blessing.
Yeah, I mean, you're a godly man. I mean, I think people lose sight of the Lord in the NBA.
100%.
A lot of them do.
Yeah, they don't want you to have that conversation on camera, talking about religion and things like that. But, my whole thing is I'll never deny my faith because that's what sustained me and has me here today, and a strong family structure being able to lean on. And I dealt with years of depression, years of suicidal tendencies, and this stuff was real. The weight, heavy, what does it say? Heavy the head that wears a crown. Heavy the head that wears a crown. So the weight of it you feel. Being the man is harder than people think. I tell people all the time, like, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
I was having this conversation yesterday. It's like, as the CEO of a big company, I don't really get, the only mentors I get is the people that come into my podcast.
Wow.
That's why I love podcasting, because I get mentorship every time. I get to sit down, 1 hour mentorship, or I have a couple of spiritual mentors and then a business mentor. But Dave Meltzer coaches me. I always seek mentorship. My point is but people come to the CEO thinking he knows everything. It's like, dude, I'm just like you.
That's right.
That's right. I need help. Pour into me.
That's right. There you go. You fill my cup too.
I fill my cup, but that's not. You're not allowed to do that when you're the CEO.
Right.
Like, everybody's coming to you for counsel or wisdom or the answer.
That's right. That's right.
So thank God I got a business partner who's my best friend, who's also wiser than me. So he pours into me a lot. But I'm always on a quest for improvement, because I just know I'm just this little speck of dust in this world.
That's right. Yeah. You make it bigger than yourself.
Yeah. So let's dive into it. So today you work with young athletes all over the country. What are the core principles you insist on building before anything else?
Core principles are hard work, dedication, commitment, sacrifice, and the will to be your best self. I think if you can stick to that and be consistent with your production when you get the opportunity, with that combination, good things usually happen. The problem is I see kids that develop, they start to see results, and then they become complacent. And then the guy that's not as talented as you, that's willing to go the extra mile, he's going to surpass you. So you have to be consistent in your approach with your craft and be willing to prove yourself and be consistent about it.
Now let me ask you this. Manchild, it wasn't just a documentary. It was like a true declaration. What truth did you feel finally needed to be said out loud?
Great question. I think the truth that needed to be told was there was no wrongdoing on my behalf. I'm a sharp guy. People that know me, they know that. It's more to me than basketball, and the film speaks to pieces of it. The NC2A did something in my career that I can't regain. 2 years was taken out of my career that really impacted me emotionally and mentally. I was obviously still one of the best players in the country. I'm probably one of the only California guys to recruit at 4 different times in high school, so I took close to 12 to 16 college visits in that time. Unbeknownst to myself, I didn't see what was ahead, but I got to the top of the mountain. And then when you get there, it's like, well, what do you do now? You're by yourself. How do you stay driven, and how do you keep your edge? So that's something that I took a liking to. The fact that I was an introvert and I knew I was a loner, it helped me. And I think today, being in this space, not achieving my ultimate dream, playing in the NBA, and having an opportunity to impact so many kids gives me a bigger platform, because it's like the what ifs and all the things that didn't work in my life, I can impart back to the youth. I think it helped, be a bigger blessing.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
When you mentor a rising player, what are you looking for beyond talent? Like, what signals whether someone is ready for the work you bring?
I think the grit, the commitment, the intensity, and the will to prove yourself. Half of the work is the work you see behind the scenes, and the other work is when the lights come on. Everybody trains, but who can produce consistently at a high level? So I look for the player that's willing to dare to be great. And that's what I tell kids. Dare to be great, dream big, and give it all you got. You say live full and die empty.
Have you mentored any players that went to the NBA yet?
I work with Daniel Hamilton, who went to UConn. He's an LA guy, played at Crenshaw and finished at Bosco, him and his brother Isaac. I mentored both of them growing up. I've got a cousin now, Kassan Lawson, who's at Marina High School. He's an up-and-coming guard, sophomore playing varsity there. There's several guys. I work with Harrison Barnes, who's in the Golden State Warriors. I'm not sure San Antonio. I think he's now with the Spurs. There's several guys. I spent a little time with KD early in his career, Kevin Durant. A lot of stuff behind the scenes. I don't promote those kind of things. It's more of an intimate experience. Guys will reach out sometimes through social media. We might meet up and, might just have a sit down talking about stuff.
Yeah, because all these NBA players they know your story.
Yeah.
Because it was it was a true travesty in the basketball world.
Yeah.
Me being a basketball fan, and I'm sure like KD and all these guys know your story. You probably went up against them, or. Yeah,
a lot of guys talked about, on plane rides to road games and stuff. Some of my peers that played in the NBA, they would tell me, guys like Kevin Garnett telling stories about me, and guys like Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, asking some of the guys from LA that played with them, was he really that good? And, so a lot of people just, like, you don't understand. It was before social media. I mean, they compared me, the writers that is, to Jordan Barkley, like a combination. So, and I think that was pretty accurate because it was a grit, a tenacity, athleticism, and just a will to be my best self.
Yeah, I mean, you're a sharp guy, man. The story's still to be told, right? So That's what you're doing.
Absolutely. We got a book in the works too, so I'm not dead yet.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's inspire. Let's do God's work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's use that child. So what was the inspiration to name the documentary Manchild?
Manchild is a moniker that the writers gave me when I was playing. They said watching me was like a man amongst boys, like it was unfair. And the reason that it looked like that is because I dared to be great. I constantly test myself, played and trained against my brother constantly, and he beat up on me. He was always 2.5 years older, so I grew up playing against him and his peers, and I had to first be tough enough to be on the court to compete with them, so there was no fouls being called. So to be able to get through that, the physicality of the game, which I grew to love, and to prove myself with his peers, and then to be able to come back to my group, in my class, and then basically dominate. And I just would rinse and repeat that experience, so I would always keep an edge and stay in the front. And I think a lot of guys today don't play enough pickup. They do a lot of training development with trainers, but the pickup, understanding the flow, the spacing, how to read the pick and roll on the defensive end, how to come off of it on the offensive end, and just really understanding, your personnel, who needs to get the ball, when and where and why, and ultimately being consistent, with your approach.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, what's the most dangerous thing about today's youth sports culture, and how are you building something to protect young men from it?
The most dangerous in the youth sports probably would be the NIL and the vultures around it. The protection mechanism would be to lay out resources so they can chart their path, they can see their journey, and just stay committed to your commitment, and ultimately stay close to me along your journey, and not steer away from us because you start to get to a certain point where you get the accolades, you get the NIL, and you start getting the attention, and it goes to your head. I think that is the biggest downfall.
Why do you think the NIL is a downfall? I mean, and one component for the superstars, it's changing their life, their families' lives, it's encouraging them to stay in college, thankfully,
right.
Instead of get drafted. But we never look, and obviously it was illegal before to give a player money before they get drafted, but now it's like the status quo. What is it that you feel is dangerous about it now?
I think early success, when you're not used to it and you don't have the right circle around you to manage it and continue to chart your path to get better, is what will allow players to not reach their goals. The money, there's so much money around the sport now, as far as high school to college. I think it dilutes the hunger. When you get too much money in high school,
They're giving high school players.
Oh yeah. Look, Bronny James had a $7 million valuation at Sierra Canyon. I mean, he go to SC. I think he had 4 million, 3.8 somewhere in there. You know, you're talking. These guys are making more money in 1 year than the college coaches getting paid. So from high school to college, what I see in college is the coaches can't build chemistry from year to year that's consistent because guys are being interchanged because of the money. You can win and have a great season. A guy's happy, then next thing you know, his name's in the portal. So there's no loyalty there. So it makes it harder for those teams to be competitive year to year. And I think the mid-majors are the ones that suffer because they have a smaller collective, a lot smaller financially. So you can't get the quality of talent to compete against the Power Fives, like the Dukes and UCLAs and some of the bigger schools.
Why can't they get the talent?
The money. You know, they just can't seem to secure enough funding for the guys that have five-star ability to come in and play for them. Because a lot of guys now, they want playing time and they want to know how much money they're going to get paid. And ultimately, is there any endorsements in it for them as well? So it has to do with everything else besides the game. And I think it's affecting the game on some level. It's not that I don't like the NIL. I like it because players are finally starting to get monetized in their space. But I think it's taken away from the game because of the team concept and the loyalty aspect is starting to become fleeting.
It's sad to see.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the same level of talent. Yeah, I saw there's a documentary Shaq did because he's the president of Reebok basketball, and he's scouting kids like ninth grade,
Right.
10th grade, like early.
Right. Trying to revive the brand,
Yeah.
however they can. I mean, Reebok was hot. Him and Iverson back in the day, I can remember. Everybody was wearing the Iversons, and, Shaq was everywhere. So I respect what he's doing. I was on Mike Bibby's podcast last night, Straight Game podcast, and we were talking about the NIL, and he said, look, it's killing the mid-majors because they just can't compete financially. So all the guys that they're going after are going to Power Fives because they have a bigger budget.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're like the Lakers.
That's right.
The Power Five.
That's right.
I don't even know what Cooper Flag got.
I tell you, I'm sure he's doing fine, and he's a hell of a talent,
No, he's a hell of a talent, and he got. I mean, they said his deal with the NBA, like with all the endorsements over the next couple of years, like in the billions.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so it's a next level, number one pick, but
Right.
with endorsements and all that over the next. It was like $1 billion for his first like 5 or 10 years, something crazy.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
So you speak to parents as much as you speak to players. What do you tell them about their role building or breaking their child's foundation?
Great question. I think the important piece with the parents is just to be a parent rather than being a parent, coach, and somebody like a helicopter parent hovering over the kid at the games and on the refs and hounding the coach. Just be a parent. Come and, participate in as far as support, cheering for your kid. If things need to be said, you need to pick a time after the game, ideally, or before they play, and let them have the experience during the game so they don't feel like they have to choose where does my attention go? Am I looking at the coach? Am I looking at my parent during the game on the sideline? That's a distraction. So I talk to them about those things where if you can just focus on being a parent, let the kid get the opportunity and let the professionals in sport, handle their sport. That way it makes it easier for you. You're lighter than when you're at home, have these conversations with them, but come from a place of love rather than demeaning, the kid and trying to beat their spirit up. So I think that's a challenge today. With the NIL, things have changed because the landscape, what I see is a lot of the parents are living vicariously through the kids because of the money. So, and the parents get a little out of control. You're seeing a lot more fights and things like that at the game, and that's the unfortunate side of the business right now.
Yeah. Discipline, humility, accountability. These are all words that show up in everything you do. Why are they the non-negotiables in your program?
Discipline you have to have in anything in life if you want to become something and do anything that's about substance. I think accountability we have to have it in life. Things won't always go well. It's better to look in the mirror than to be quick to blame or point fingers. I was always taught, my father used to tell me, rest in peace, that every time you point the finger, you got 3 pointing right back at you. So it's better to look within yourself. How can I fix things and how can I be better? Ultimately to be a bigger impact. And the last one was?
Why are they non-negotiable? So it's discipline, humility, and accountability.
Oh, the humility aspect is crucial. I think that's something that I lean to more than anything. When I meet people, I come in low so I can kind of check the temperature and see where they are. And you can meet people where they are. I find you can make a bigger impact that way, and it resonates different. You know,
Yeah.
you're not coming in bragging, boisterous. You really want to make an impact because you're coming with service rather than with your handout.
That's a good, and that's the best way to live life. Just be of service to everyone you meet.
Absolutely.
Now, if you could sit down right now with a one-on-one with a 15-year-old who's being told he's the next big thing, what would you tell him? Not as a warning, but as preparation.
If I could sit down with the next big thing at 15 years old today, I would tell him to keep your feet on the ground, take the trash out, treat the janitor like the president. Remember, you're only as good as your last game, and the train like your career depends on it, because it does.
Any warning? What would the warning be that happened to you? Like, how would you prevent them from that tragedy happening to you?
I would tell them to prepare for the inevitable. You know, I always say prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and focus on your end goal. You know, having the big picture in mind at the whole time. So you push, okay, I become a pro athlete, and then what does life look like while you're a pro, and what does it look like after? If you can prepare for all those steps while you're embarking on that journey, I think you'll land in a better place. A lot of guys, they get to a point where either they don't get drafted, and then you're just perplexed and you don't know how to recover and move forward, or you have a great career, things work, and now the second phase of your life comes in and you're kind of lost because you're used to being the center of attention and everything being laid out, and now you have to be proactive and do things on your own with the money. So you still have a transition, but you have to put the right people around you. I think the support group is important. You know, you want to see your future, look at your circle.
I love that. I love that. Now, you built a brand, you built an academy, and a philosophy. What's your long game here?
Long game is to put Academy of Ideas, which is our nonprofit, and the Manchild brand under one roof, and have everything that we encompass in one facility, and have everybody be able to come and get the experience and be able to outsource when need be for the kids that need the resources in life, whether it be trade or tech or STEM, whatever the case may be. We have those relationships, so to bring everything under one roof and have a one-stop shop.
Love that.
Yep.
Now, when people say the name Schea Cotton, what do you hope they associate it with now?
Resilience, accountability, grit, a loving spirit, and somebody that is willing to do whatever he has to do to help inspire, to save lives of our next generation.
Let's go. I love it. I love the mission. I love what you're doing. A couple last questions for you. What's a personal goal that you have for yourself? A family goal that you have for your family, and a business goal that you have for the foundation, for the movie, for your personal brand, for the for the nonprofit, kind of an all-encompassing.
Personal goal I have for myself to be the best version of myself each day that I'm blessed to wake up. As far as my family is concerned, to be able to create a dynamic and be able to monetize that, I'll be good and they'll be good long after I leave. And the brand itself to be a worldwide brand, something that people can be proud of, you know, whether you're wearing our gear or just a part of the mentorship, the training, our nonprofit stuff, you know, but just to be kind of like the brand for the future, for people to look to and want to duplicate the work that we're doing.
Last question. When you're in front of the pearly gates, what do you think God's going to tell you?
I'm proud of you, my good and faithful servant, for what I gave you. You took it and you quantified it, you know, and you remained obedient.
I love that, Schea. God bless you. I hope you hit every single one of your goals. You keep crushing. You continue to inspire. And you're a lot more impressive in person, man. You're very diligent, very well-spoken, very intelligent, and really impressed. You know, I think God's got big plans for you.
Thank you.
If people want to connect with you, how do they find you?
You can find me on social, Instagram at Schea Cotton. I'm on Facebook as well. We have a website for our nonprofit, academyofideas.org. We're on Instagram for our Academy of Ideas. It's _ at Academy of Ideas. And last but not least, we've got a screening for Manchild coming up September 21st. Would encourage everybody to come out. It'll be a great experience. We're calling it the Shea Cotton Experience. It's at Bill's Barbecue in Santa Ana on Main Street. And it starts at 4 to 6:30 p.m. It'll be a great experience. Everybody should come out. You can find the link in my Shea Cotton Instagram. Just tap the Party Food link under my bio.
Let's go. Make sure, guys, to follow Shea Cotton, a legend in the basketball game, a legend now in society. Let's go. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Appreciate it.